Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we do another deep dive back into Shudder. And let's get to the list!
You get out there, Mr. Midnight, and you knock him dead.
Late Night with the Devil is a 2023 supernatural horror movie. Written, directed, and edited by Colin and Cameron Carnes. It stars David Desmalchian, Laura Gordon, and Ian Bliss. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms.
Please welcome Dr. June Ross Mitchell and Lily, the young subject of the book, Conversations with the Devil.
I really don't think it's a good idea, Jack. She's becoming more unpredictable.
So I was able to go see this in theaters when it was first released about a month or so ago. And I've been excited ever since I first saw about this movie because it's just a great time. It looks so much like the 70s, it just kind of transports you into that world. And the way it's put together, it really feels like you're just watching this episode of a late night talk show like Johnny Carson. And because of that, it just sucks you in and keeps you captivated the whole time. I've also become a huge fan of David Desmalchian. I've just seen him in so many different things, playing smaller roles, supporting roles. And so to see him in this and be the lead and absolutely kill it was just a blast. But this movie is a lot of fun and one that I highly recommend.
Who are you hiding from?
You'll Never Find Me is a 2023 supernatural horror movie. Written and directed by Indiana Bell and Josiah Allen. It stars Brendan Rock, Jordan Cohen, and Elena Karapidis. A strange and lonely man lives in a mobile home park, and during a violent storm, a young woman appears at his doorstep seeking shelter from the elements. I've been hearing a buzz about this for a few weeks now. Quite a few of you guys reached out to me and said, hey, you need to check this out. And so it was on my list of movies that I had to watch while putting this list together. And I'm really glad I did because I really enjoy this movie. Now, like a lot of Shudder movies, you got to keep in mind, they're a small film. They aren't these big productions. It's really a simple kind of concept. And in this case, it's just really about these two individuals that are in this mobile home and are kind of stuck inside because of this violent storm that's going on the outside. But it gets so uncomfortable. I mean, a big chunk of this movie, you're really questioning what exactly is going on because it really just feels like it's just this conversation between these two strangers that's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. They're not really quite sure if they could trust each other, one of those kind of things. But then there's these little weird things that keep happening that every now and then remind you that what you're watching is not the reality. There's something going on under the surface. And I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to say anything else about that. But this is a slow burn, so you got to be patient and ride it out. But I think that the conversations and the dialogue are really captivating. The two main leads do a fantastic job as well of just keeping you engrossed and really wanting to see what's going on here. But if you enjoy intense, dread-filled independent horror movies, this is one you gotta see.
There is nothing out there!
Your mind's looking for things to worry about.
The Wind is a 2018 supernatural horror movie, directed by Emma Tammy in her feature film debut. It stars Caitlin Gerard, Ashley Zuckerman, and Julia Godani-Tells. A plainswoman faces harshness and isolation of the untamed land in the western frontier of the late 1800s.
No longer a God-fearing woman.
I don't suspect God has much business out here.
This one's a really haunting, moody, atmospheric film. It's definitely a slow burn, one you really got to be patient with, because it's all about the dread and the anxiety and the unknown of what is going on here. Because it's one of those movies that what you see on the surface is not exactly what it appears. And as the movie goes on, it becomes more and more haunting, more and more uncomfortable. And you start to really kind of grasp what the real meaning of this movie is, as well as what this poor woman is dealing with. And yes, it is a supernatural movie, but the thing that I found the most uncomfortable about it was just this feeling of isolation. And after 2020 and what so many of us went through that kind of wrote it out by ourselves and felt super isolated and alone, this movie just hit home, I think anyway, for me, much harder. It's a well-written movie. The cinematography is fantastic. It's well-paced and edited. The directing is on point. The acting is great. It's just a solid movie, and one that you definitely need to see.
We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Lucky is a 2020 horror movie. Directed by Natasha Kermani, it stars Brea Grant, Yasmin Al-Bastami, and Dhruv Singh. A suburban woman finds herself stalked by a threatening figure who returns to her house night after night. And when she can't get help from those around her, she is forced to take matters into her own hands.
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man who comes every night and tries to kill us.
This is a real hidden gem, one that I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talk about it. And maybe it's just me, maybe I'm on an island, but I think it's a solid little movie. It deals with some really heady concepts and has a lot of layers to it. It's one of those films that has a deep message to it, and as it goes throughout it, you kind of grasp what is really going on here more and more. But it's such a creative, unique movie with a really interesting concept, and one that I don't want to say here because that'll spoil things, but a very original kind of idea. And Brea Grant, just like everything she's in, just gives it everything she's got and is fantastic. But I love the look and style of it. It's really well put together, especially for a small indie movie. But if you've never seen this one, I think it's time that you do. So definitely check this one out.
It's yours if you want it.
Mandrake is a 2022 Irish folk horror movie. Directed by Lynn Davison and written by Matt Harvey. It stars Deirdre Mullins, Darby Crotty, and Paul Kennedy. It's about a probation officer who is tasked with rehabilitating a notorious killer named Bloody Mary Lodlow back into society following a 2-decade sentence.
Why do you stay in this town?
I'm a huge fan of creepy folk horror movies, ones that just are full of dread and have tons of atmosphere. And this kind of checks all those boxes. It also goes into some really creepy, witchy stuff, and I love that as well. I think this movie just looks so cool. Like, it has that look that you want from a movie to do with folk horror. And it seems like the Irish just always knock it out of the park when it comes to that. Just everything from the wardrobe design, the set location, everything just has this wet, creepy, foggy, and I know what you guys in the UK are saying. That's just the way it looks. I get it. But it translates really well into film, and especially if you're dealing with folk horror. So for those of you out there that enjoy witchy folk horror movies, this one's an absolute must-see. The Stylist is a 2020 horror drama, written and directed by Jill Javardzian. It stars Najira Townsend and Brea Grant. It's about a lonely hairstylist who secretly murders and scalps her clients. This movie goes so much harder than I ever expected it to go. It's based on a quality short, and so I expected this to be a good movie, but it just, I mean, it's way more brutal, it's way more deep and emotional, and just a much better put together movie than I ever thought it would be. For one, Nahara Townsend is just incredible in this. I mean, for me, her performance in this goes right up there with Toni Collette, Rebecca Hall, Mia Goth. I mean, just some of the greatest female performances we've seen in recent memory. Because you find yourself rooting for her, but at the same time being horrified by the things she does and constantly being on edge, not knowing what she's gonna do next, because she's just so unhinged in this film. But it's a gripping, intense nail biter, and one that you definitely need to see.
The company of wolves is better than that of man.
Hunted is a 2021 Belgian-French-Irish survival thriller. Directed by Vincent Perinaud, it stars Lucy DeBay, Christian Bronchart, and Clarence O'Brien. Young Eve gets involved with a stranger after a visit to the bar, but when another man joins her, she realizes that something terrible is about to happen. So she manages to escape into the woods, and a wild chase begins. This movie is crazy because it is really just a couple minutes of setup, and then the vast majority of this movie is just a long chase scene. But it gets so involved, so many different things happen, so many things that she comes across and has to survive. It's just a blast. It's intense, it's exciting, it's nail-biting, it's just go, go, go from minute one. I mean, Lucy DeBay's performance in this is fantastic because she's terrified, but also just so intense, and her facial expressions and all the different things that she conveys through body language with not a lot of dialogue is just great. But this is a very underrated movie and one you definitely need to see.
I just want it all to be over.
A Banquet is a 2021 horror movie. Directed by Ruth Paxton, it stars Sienna Gollery, Jessica Alexander, and Ruby Stokes. The story is about a widowed mother whose husband and father of her daughters dies from self-harm, and one night her daughter has what she believes to be a supernatural experience that results in her refusing to eat.
She's perfect in every way, except for one thing. She never eats.
This movie is really mysterious. It's uncomfortable. It really keeps you guessing the entire time. And it's very unique. I mean, the premise alone and some of the directions that it takes, it's definitely not going to be for everyone. But I think if you're someone that likes weird, quirky, strange movies, then I think this one would be right up your alley. But the performances are really well done here. They feel so real and authentic and keep you engaged the entire movie. But it's another one that's much more of a dialogue-driven, dramatic horror movie than it is, you know, an exciting, action-packed one. So you just gotta go into this in the right state of mind, ready for an artsy, slow-burn thriller. One that gets kind of macabre at times, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So definitely add this one to your list.
Closer. It's all in your head.
You have no idea what he's capable of.
Son is a 2021 Irish-American horror movie. Written and directed by Ivan Kavanagh. It stars Emil Hirsch, Annie Matichak, and Luke David Blum. When a young boy contracts a mysterious illness, his mother must decide how far she will go to protect him from terrifying forces in her past.
David?
David, wake up!
This movie was such a surprise, and it also really surprises me how little I hear anyone talk about it, because, I mean, for one, Annie Matichak was great in the Halloween movies. As much as you may not love all of them like me, her performance I thought was great, especially in the first two. And so she has a name. And then you have Emil Hirsch, who is fantastic in a bunch of movies as well. So, I mean, the cast is great. It looks fantastic. It is a small budget, kind of a small production horror movie, but it goes in some really wild directions and does things that I just did not expect. It's really creepy and unnerving and has a lot of mood and atmosphere, especially in certain parts of it. It's intense and surprising and takes some unique directions, and it'll keep you guessing all the way to the end. This movie is very engaging and one that's definitely worth your time.
You can't kill her. You cannot let her out of the basement.
Baghead is a 2023 German-UK horror movie. Directed by Alberto Corredor, it stars Freya Allen, Ruby Barker, and Jeremy Irvine. A young woman inherits a rundown pub and discovers a dark secret in its basement. A shape-shifting creature that will let you speak to lost loved ones, but not without consequences.
Iris. We shouldn't be here.
So hear me out. I wanted to love this movie. There's a lot of things that I do love about it, but it isn't a perfect movie, and I did have some problems with it. But it's still on this list as a recommendation because I think there is enough good here and enough things that are worth watching and entertaining to still make it one worth your time. For one, it's moody and atmospheric. It gets pretty creepy. The way Baghead, the creature, looks is really cool. But some of my problems are there is some CGI and some of it is just not the greatest. On top of that, some of the directions that it takes, especially towards the end, they weren't necessarily home run ideas. But once again, I'm really torn on this because I think a lot of you will be entertained by it. So it's one of those that are kind of a popcorn horror movie. One that you just kind of gotta check your brain at the door a bit. Not overthink it, definitely not pick it apart, because if you do, then you may not enjoy it. But if you just kind of go into it with the right expectations, I think you could definitely have a good time with it. So I think it's a perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! That's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week, I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or if you want to help the channel out through being a channel member, there's a button right down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 10 more horror movies that I think you'll enjoy. And I'll see you guys next time.